Go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, well, let's go ahead and say, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the First Coast Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the great panelists that we have today, thank you for joining us. Today, as you can hear, we had a little bit of IT difficulties until we can figure this out. But I think we're ready for now. So I will quickly just introduce our panelists. They have more so formed an economic relief for small business task force, which is really more so focusing on being a resource and a conduit for additional information that we as business owners can more so utilize. So first I'll start with Julio Fuentes. Julio Fuentes is the president of the Florida State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and also an ally for us locally, has been instrumental for us throughout this past 2 years that we've been partnering in many endeavors. Then we also have Axel Miranda, who is a strategic business leader. And then we have LeaderLazaro, who is the co-chair for the Florida State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Global Council. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just hand it over to Julio, and then we can go more over. One thing is, I really would like today's session to be very dynamic, right? Each of the panelists will more so give an overview of what's happening, what's in the pipeline, how and what it is that we can do to leverage it, and then we will open it to Q&A. You either have an option to unmute yourself, or you can send me an IM via Zoom, and I'll be more than happy to read out the questions to the group so that we can all answer it.
Want me to take over now, Monica?
Yours, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Appreciate you and your leadership there in Jacksonville to take the time to listen to myself and Laz and Axel, who I'll introduce here in a moment. But first, I want to send a quick, hope everyone's hanging in there. Obviously, this is probably the most difficult of times, especially for not only our families, our businesses. This is week 2, and hoping that the end is near. So, but we wanted to share some as much information as we can that we have been gathering throughout the last couple of weeks here, both at a state level and at a federal level. And we really, really do want to focus on the small business. Small business is considered 500 employees or less. We obviously care about those businesses, and we will be there for those businesses. But really, for the start, we want to focus on those micro businesses, right? Those businesses that have maybe 10 employees, 5 employees or less. And we want to make sure that we're there for those individuals and encourage them to hang in there, as tough as it may be. Take advantage of the opportunities that our federal and state government are making available to you as a small business owner. And just know that I know Monica and the leadership over at the First Coast Hispanic Chamber is there for you. Just know that us here at the state is also looking out and advocating for you, because we want to make sure that those micro businesses are not forgotten during this process. So with that, I want to introduce Lazaro Muir, who is a friend for many years now. And when all this kind of took off, we really didn't know what kind of direction this was going to head on. And so I basically tapped him to serve as the chairman and lead this task force that we have organized to gather as much information as possible from the federal government and state government. And he has done a fantastic job. He probably knows more than anybody else out there right now as far as what's available. So Laz, if I could turn it over to you.
Thank you, Julio, and it's my honor to serve the Florida State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce on this great cause. As you always say, small business is big business in Florida, and we want to make sure that all of our businesses can survive this critical time. So if I may, I will commence with a high-level overview of what is out there, because sometimes in the midst of confusion, we tend to lose the forest for the trees. So let's start with the state of Florida. The state of Florida, thanks to your efforts, Julio, and your collaboration with the Governor DeSantis, has initiated what's known as a bridge loan program. That bridge loan program is aimed at providing immediate cash flow so that we can get from point A to point B without having to fire employees or close the doors of our businesses. Now, point A starts in January. Point B is whenever we get past the corona crisis. The interest, these loans are interest-free for 1 year. Now, there is a back end that does have an interest component, but all of those details you can get from the website, where we provide a link, and that link has a detailed explanation of how to apply, when to apply, and what you can apply for. But basically, this bridge loan is just to get the cash flow that you would otherwise have had to pay your employees and pay your overhead for the period of crisis. From there, we also make note of the fact that you need to be checking with your particular counties and cities, because separate and apart from the funding from the state of Florida for these bridge loans, many counties in Florida will also be initiating what they will be calling micro loans. So you want to be on top of that in your particular region as well. Now, we all see the newspapers and hear the news regarding the $2 trillion stimulus plan, which, by the way, just got passed by the House. However, few people read about the $4 trillion stimulus package that is available right now from the Federal Reserve. Yes, the Federal Reserve, separate and aside from what you've read, is going to make $4 trillion available to our small businesses, again, to make sure that they keep their employees in place and the doors open until people can actually come back in and do business. That's a very critical component. And they're looking to fund a specific shortfall of cash flow. So please make note of that as well. That information will be on the website and available to you for follow-up. Now let's focus on the $2 trillion stimulus package that was just passed this afternoon by the House, and it's on its way to the White House for signature. That $2 trillion has a component of $350 billion to small businesses. Those funds will become available pursuant to the standard 7A loan procedures of the SBA with some flexibility. The flexibility comes in the way of what the bankers will be permitted to do. And what the bankers have been asked to do is to open their doors, be very lenient or relaxed with their lending guidelines. And in fact, even banks that are not currently eligible as Section 7A preferred lenders may easily become qualified in this moment of crisis so that the cash flow can make it directly to our business owners. And we'll come back to that. So separate and apart from the $350 billion 7A loan program, there's also something called the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. That was previously reported to be $50 billion. Then when we spoke to the people in Washington, D.C., they said they were looking at $7 billion. the number that's contained in the bill that was just signed is $10 billion. What the difference between this disaster, economic injury disaster loan and the 7A is that you don't need a bank as an in-between. This is, you go directly to the SBA and the SBA directly lends you this money. Okay, and that's the beauty of it. In addition to that, pending review of your application, you can get as much as $10,000 in a cash advance directly from the SBA under this program. And whether or not you are approved for the loan that you've applied for, you can keep the $10,000 and up to $10,000, and provided you've used these funds to maintain your payroll and keep the door open, you don't have to repay any of that. So you begin to see that there are multiple sources of cash coming into our small businesses. We just have to be certain that we know exactly where they're coming from so that our individual business owners can have a checklist that says, okay, I have applied for the Florida Bridge loan. I have applied to the county in which I do business for their microloans. I have also applied to the Federal Reserve for a little bit of cash of that $4 trillion. And yes, I am getting ready to apply for the 7A $350 billion loan program, but in the interim, I have also applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and I am awaiting my $10,000 cash advance. That is what we are, that's our mission, that is what we are aiming for, that every Hispanic business owner be very well structured, very well informed, so that they know exactly what's available, what their timelines are, and proceed accordingly. And that's what we hope to do through the Access Capital page on the FSHCC website, basically providing a guideline. Now, please understand, and we are all fully aware, there are no guarantees when we're dealing with the federal government as it relates to 7A loans. So we need a solid fallback position, because we are going to have those very successful business owners who may have had a bump or two in the past and the road. Their credit isn't what it should be. Maybe they're not as well organized, and they don't have all of the information that we have to compile for a 7A loan. Well, we have, thanks to the Hispanic Chamber Fund, individuals that are going to be stepping in and helping us help our Hispanic business community. That's my summary for this afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Laz. And as you could also tell, obviously there is a lot of information that Laz just laid out there, and I definitely echo what Laz mentioned as far as going after what is available to us. I mean, again, this is not any one individual's fault. Definitely leave your political beliefs or party at the door. This is something that we are all fighting for as individuals, as entrepreneurs, as you all are out there. This is a fight. This is a fight, and this is something that's made available to us, and we need to make sure that we're there, getting our fair share of that. So with that, Monica, are we going to do questions after Axel, or we're going to take some questions now, or?
If people have questions right now, I'm happy to take any questions that we may have, or we can just transition over to Axel. And to be clear, we can also do this. The questions as well can be done in Spanish, so we're bilingual. Do we have any questions? Yes, so someone just asked if we would have all these details on the websites, and yes, after the call, we will be creating a small flyer with all the details that are going to be mentioned today. Okay, so let's go ahead and just transition over to Axel.
Okay. Next, want to introduce another dear friend, Axel Miranda, who has recently joined our board of governors. Axel is somebody who has been advocating for Hispanic businesses for many, many, many years, and he really, it's a passion of his to help Latino businesses. So obviously, when this situation that we find ourselves in today, Axel was right there, front and center, willing to assist and lend his time to the work that we're doing at the Florida State Hispanic Chamber. And we've recently joined or formed a strategic alliance with the Hispanic Chamber Fund, which he's going to explain exactly what the Hispanic Chamber Fund is, and is available to you all up there in Jacksonville. So, Axel, floor is yours.
Thank you, Julio, and thank you to Monica, and thank you to your leadership, Monica, and putting this together and being the advocate for the community, the Hispanic community that you are. And I just want to say I echo our CEO's comments, Julio's, and our chairman, Laz, you know, the remarks they made. And I wish I wasn't speaking to you all during these times, and I wish you and your family and loved ones well and good health. As Julio mentioned, I am a founding board member of the Hispanic Chamber Fund, and I am also a board of governor with the Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And prior to the new norm, as they call it, we had embarked upon a relationship because we felt that although there's, as Laz so eloquently put out, and I call him the professor, and I've never heard anyone speak about and have such knowledge to this as he does. But before COVID-19 came out, we saw that there was already issues with access to capital in our Latino community and our Hispanic community with respects to money coming out. The idea behind the Hispanic Chamber Fund, I'll briefly give you a history because I think it's important. Over 10 years ago, there was maybe 15,000 community banks across the country. And that is where our parents, our grandparents, and so forth, that's where they went to get their money. That's when, you know, they were running their little bodega or their hairstylist or whatever it was on the corner, and they went in there for their money. And, you know, they would walk in and the branch manager knew them and said, "Hey, Mr. Hernandez, how's it going? How's your mother? How's your grandfather?" And they would get their, you know, their $25,000 or whatever it was, or the $20,000 or $5,000 loan, because it was that time of the year that things were slow. And there wasn't too many questions asked. It was fill out the application and here you go, a handshake and you're out the door. So what happened over the last 10 years is that has dried up. And you'll be shocked to know that there's probably a little bit over 2,000 community banks across the country. And you won't find them in a lot of the communities that our community lives in. So access to capital has dried up. Back then, a lot of that access to capital was based on relationships and social capital. So a group of us at the Hispanic Chamber Fund came together, a group of philanthropists, a group of advocates came together, and we formed the Hispanic Chamber Fund. And then we said, so who has this relationship capital? And the relationship capital is the Chambers of Commerce. Julio and Monica and Laz, you guys know your people. You know who's coming in through your doors every day. You know them, who's an active member, who's not an active member. So for us, that was, okay, so there's the social capital. So we created the Hispanic Chamber Fund, and we partnered with Chambers of Commerce. So what happens now is you have someone that might apply for a loan somewhere, whether it's a community bank or a larger bank, and they put an application and something comes up. The credit score is not what it should be. There was a bankruptcy. Maybe they don't have financial statements. Their tax returns aren't positive. So for a multitude of different reasons, they could get denied. So what happens when they come to Julio or Monica now, in a partnership with the Hispanic Chamber Fund, we run the same process that a bank would run. We have the same instruments, the same knowledge. The Hispanic Chamber Fund has a workforce of over 200 people running everything that a normal bank would run. And before we say, if we're going to say no to somebody because we saw a blip there, we call Julio or we'll call Monica and say, hey, Julio, Mr. Fernandez is applying for a $5,000 loan. We see some stuff on his report. And Julio goes, oh no, Axel, Mr. Fernandez is good people. He's had some mistakes, some issues on the past, but he's good. Let's do the loan for him. Now, obviously, that's a responsibility now that's going to fall to Julio and Monica. But the reality is that we'll be able to put more access of capital onto the streets because there is the relationship capital that was lost when community development dried up. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't partnership because what we do, and our chairman, Laz, I think he pointed it out perfectly the other day, the Hispanic Chamber Fund is like a clearinghouse. So if somebody applies to us, but we feel that they're better, especially in this climate, that they're better for one of the state or federal programs that have been rolled out because of the coronavirus, we're going to say, hey, I think you're better for this, and we're going to work with them to move them back into that area. Or if they are working with one of our partners, our banking partners, and I know that Monica at her chamber and Julio at the state level have partners that are banks, we will work with them also and say, hey, this is better for you. And in return, the bank may say, hey, we can't help this person. Maybe you guys can help them. So that's kind of the relationship that we're having that's been really good. Our staff are bilingual. Our process is very simple. You go to, with respect to Florida, you go to the Florida State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce website. On the upper right-hand corner, you'll see something that says HC Fund. You'll click that. It takes you straight to the Hispanic Chamber Fund website. You click on, answer a few questions, and that day or the next day, someone will call you and walk you through the process and start that process, and that person speaks Spanish. Now, we offer different programs. A lot of people say, what are the, what's your criteria? And all I usually say is every individual is treated independently. This is an alternative market, so the rates go from 9.99 up to 24.99. It's private money. It's not money from the government. It's not money from banks. So that money has an added cost to it, but it's there to help folks that need it. We have a multitude of different programs where we have interest-only payments to start off with, to then principal and interest. So we treat every individual separately. There are some products that require you to offer a guarantee, whether it's your business or a piece of real estate. Again, every program, every application is individual. And the other thing that we're doing, and I cannot forget this because to me this is one of the most important components, is that we will make a loan to somebody if they have an ITIN number, and that's an individual tax ID number. And that's given to individuals that are undocumented that still registered their businesses. So we don't care about your status as a citizen. If you've registered your business and you went through the process to have it registered, we will take your application in just like any other application that we take in. So again, I want to thank you for your time. If you go to our website, you'll see some prominent people on the board, including the one I throw out there a lot is everybody knows the play Hamilton. Lin-Manuel's father, Luis Miranda, is one of our board members. We're very proud of that, and you'll see that it's a very diversified board and responsible individuals that want to make a difference in our community. Thank you, Monica, for this time.
And Monica, this is Laz, if I may.
It's all yours, Laz.
One of the important things also is that the team that we have with the Florida State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, your Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Hispanic Chamber Fund, is a safety guard for our Hispanic business owners. We need to make sure that they don't fall into the hands of unscrupulous business loan brokers or scams that are going to be coming out as of Monday. Some already are out, and the Attorney General has already informed us of that. We want to make sure that they come and deal with credible people that want the best for them. and we're going to guide them every step of the way together with you. That's it.
Bueno, ahorita María Isabel me preguntó de que si podíamos publicar los links que fueron mencionados. Yo estaré publicando los minutos y también los links que fueron mencionados ahorita por Axel y por Laz. También me preguntaron de que si dueños de negocios de una persona aplican, pueden cualificar para este tipo de préstamos.
Lad, that's
I will address that.
One? Go ahead. Okay.
I will address that. In the past, it was very difficult for just a one-owner business to apply or get any of these benefits. However, because of the flexibility that we're bound to see next week, when we spoke with Washington, D.C., specifically Jovita, who is the head of the SBA, she said, listen, I am not going to be looking at the number of employees. I am not going to be looking at the minor details at this point. Get your application in so that we can get somebody, a case manager on your file, and we will work out the details together. And the great thing here is, thanks to the Hispanic Chamber Fund, we have a good faith clearinghouse. They're going to work with us and say, yes, this person is better off with the disaster, the economic injury disaster loan. Let's put it through that channel with our team of professionals. No, this person is better off getting both the economic injury loan as well as the SBA. Let's put them through the network of 7A lenders. If they come back, if the SBA for any reason comes back and says, no, we can't go forward with you, or the bank says, listen, we can't push this one through, then we talk to Axel and we figure out a way. Our bottom line is to make sure that as many Hispanic business owners in the state of Florida get the liquidity they need to survive this virus crisis. Thank you.
One thing I also like to more so bring up is if you as a business owner, you want to apply to this, we recommend that you do as soon as possible. So again, we want to make sure that that we get someone assigned to your case, the sooner the better, right? The more time it passes and the more volume increases. So if you have any questions, we are going to add this information into our website. I will also have the Hispanic Chamber Fund website attached within the FCHCC website as well. And another great question that somebody had was, do people have, for the Hispanic Chamber Fund, do they have to be chamber members? I'll hand that over to Axel.
Great question, Monica, great question. And it's very important that they are members of the chamber, and in this case, upstanding and active members of your chamber are important. And that's the way that we're working with the statewide chamber. Because if I call Julio about someone in your chamber, he's going to turn around and call you. And the questions that he or I will ask you is, are they active members? Do they attend all of your workshops? Do they attend everything that you ask them to do? Because it's important for them, for you to be able to give that recommendation. If you don't know them, then you might have to rely on someone else. So you have to try to establish that relationship capital somehow, Monica. So back to your original question, yes, that's the definite requirement. They must be members. And I just wanted to add, while I have the mic, that I think our chairman Laz did a wonderful response. And yes, here at the Hispanic Chamber Fund, we don't care the number of employees. It could be a sole proprietor business as well.
Great, thank you. Now, another question that was asked was if they apply, since there's different loans available and they apply to one, does it decrease the chances of them getting either one?
I can answer that if I may, please. Based on the information we have received, both from James Rivera, who is in Washington, D.C., and he is the head of the Economic Income Disaster Loan Program, as well as Jovita, who is the head of the SBA. They're saying at this point, go for both, because both are separate programs, and both can give you separate dollars. Now, eventually, the dollars will not be permitted to outweigh the real economic need. But because the 7A program, although increasingly more flexible due to the crisis, will still require a bank formula to determine the amount. So if you have already applied and received $10,000, hypothetically, from the economic injury loan, and your total need under 7A was $250, of course, they're going to pull back a little bit. They're not going to overfund you. The objective here is to help you survive. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just add something real quick, and we've been doing these webinars. We have another one later on this evening, and we've been asked if there's a presentation or material that we could hand out. And the reason we don't have is because the information is constantly changing and being updated. That's why the links is the best way to go right now. But once the dust settles, if you will, obviously we will have plenty of handouts and marketing materials that you could hand out to your membership there.
Okay, do we have any questions? Anybody else from the audience? ¿Alguna pregunta? Okay. De todas maneras, we have recorded today's session. I will be publishing it in our social media. That way, if anybody else is interested in going back to what we discussed, it will be published online. Actually, we have one more question. Actually, two more questions. Do we know if the SBA loans are being funded by banks as they normally are, or are they funded differently?
I can answer that. This is Laz. This is very critical and very important. There are two separate divisions of the SBA that are helping at this time. One division is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program division, and they will lend to you directly. In fact, under the proposed legislation that was just signed by the House, they will give you a grant as they review your application. So they don't need to work through a bank. Only when we get into the $350 billion under Section 7A do we need a bank involved. Previously, it had to be a bank that had the accreditation of being a preferred lender. They had to have applied previously to the SBA, had been approved. But the current bill that's on the way to the White House says that even those regulations may be more flexible so that more banks will be allowed to work with the SBA under the 7A program, even if they were not previously authorized to do so. And that is why everything is so fluid at this moment. We're giving you the high-level profile and information, and definitely we'll give you more details as they come about. But remember, two separate programs. One, you get the money directly from the SBA. The other, you get the money directly from a bank, guaranteed 100% by the SBA. And also, we have a beautiful fallback. If we run into any difficulties with any member in good standing, we have the Hispanic Chamber Fund.
And also, Laz mentioned this in his initial presentation, but it's so important that, what is it, Laz? 3 out of the 4 programs that are currently available are forgiveness loans, meaning
Yes.
the only strings attached is that as long as you are maintaining your workforce, you're not laying off anybody, it's a forgiven loan, which I like to call it a grant, basically, because you're not going to have to pay it back. So that's very important.
That is correct, Julio.
Okay, great. I have a few more questions from the audience. What are we looking as the turnaround time? Rick asked.
I can answer that. As of Monday, we will have a better understanding of the timeline from the information we received directly from James Rivera, who is the head of the Economic Income Disaster Loan Division. He says that basically within 3 days after you are approved, you have a check in hand. And the approval process right now is between 3 to 5 days. As their volume gets higher, that may be extended a little bit, but in no event past 21 days.
Awesome. Great. That's a quick turnaround, actually.
That's what we're fighting for.
Awesome. The next one that we have from Victor is, should we wait to apply for disaster loan when the law is signed, or does it make any difference?
You can apply for the disaster loan immediately. Right now, when we finish the call, you can pull up the site and get your application in there. That's what we were told by Washington, D.C. Get the application in so that we can log in a case manager immediately. But please, one of the things that we need to make sure is that when you do apply, stick to the facts. Do not embellish your situation. Do not add more employees than what you can really substantiate when they do minimal due diligence. Do not front load your losses. For example, if all you really need from a realistic cash flow point of view is $50,000, don't go in there asking for $500,000, because they are here to help you. We are here to help you. Don't hurt yourself by not sticking to the facts at hand and things that you can document and verify. That's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Laz. Do we have any more questions from anybody else in the audience? All right, awesome. Well, I mean, personally, I would like to thank Laz, Julio, and Axel for joining us. As you know, from a chamber standpoint, we continue to get more information. I will be sharing it through our social media channels and also through our website. So I would just ask everybody that joined us today to please send me your email address in order for me to update it and be able to share information as it's received. I have been posting a lot on Facebook with materials that I have received, and will continue to do so. And again, if you guys have any questions, on our website, FCHCC.com, there is a link that is on COVID-19. And if you guys have any questions or anything, you guys can also send me an email at president@FCHCC.com. And like Axel and Lab mentioned, there's different links that we will also update into our website to continue to provide for you guys as resources. All right, without further ado, I just want to say thank you. Please, everyone, stay healthy. Let's continue to do the best that we can. And happy to have been able to host you guys and to have Axel, Julio, and Laz in attendance today. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, okay?
Thank you, Monica. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.